That's you.
Yes.
You.
Who is your favorite author?
Who is my favorite author? Robert Parker. Yeah, well, I probably should have said Shannon, but she wouldn't have believed it because I haven't read her stuff.
I mean, this is going online.
I used to when she was still working up to being the writer. I would read her stuff and critique it for her. But she and I the last time we wrote something together was our junior year of high school, and we just about gouged out one another's eyes with our #2 pencils. But my favorite author, Robert B. Parker, author of the Spencer Mystery Series and several others. Excellent writer, dead now. But I think some other good ones are Brandon Sanderson. I picked his stuff up recently. Rothfuss, I hate that guy. Although he is the sweetest guy in person.
Is he petting his copy of Ghost Story? Yes.
Oh yes, I saw the picture of Rothfuss stroking his copy of Ghost Story with his beard. I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get that out of my head, no matter how hard I try. Right back here.
You mentioned Robert Parker. I'm curious if there's any connection between that and the Susan character and her fate.
Oh, I mentioned Robert Parker. Is there any connection between that and the Susan character and her fate? No, not really. I had to name her something, so it was Susan. Actually, I think it was probably the tick that influenced that more than anything. Susan? Oh, now you're not even trying. Right here.
You said you've already written the first sentence in the next book. Can you tell us what it is?
Okay, he wants to know the first sentence of the next book, and is there anybody here who doesn't want to be spoilered? Okay, if you don't want to be spoilered, put your fingers in your ears, because everybody else I think would probably want to know. Mab has unique ideas on physical therapy. And we'll kind of go from there.
Oh, yay! Okay, so I write, and I know that there's always like 8 billion things that you come up with that are super cool, and you can't fit them into the book with a crowbar. Would you like to tell us some of those, by any chance?
She says she writes, and she knows there are always 8 billion super cool things that I come up with that I couldn't fit in the book with a crowbar. And could I tell you some of them? Really, it's not, my process doesn't work like that. I'm a fundamentally lazy writer. I try and build the book as lean as I possibly can, just because it makes the editor's job easier, and then they like me and take me out to dinner. So there are a few things that have gotten taken out. I think there was when I was working with Jen Heddle, the original Dresden Files editor. She came back with the manuscript to Grave Peril and said, "This is awesome, and I want you to expand on these 4 storylines and cut the book by 50 pages. And I said, "So you want me to make the book larger and smaller?" She says, "Yes, and hurry." I think there was a scene with a ghoul that I planned on using for ghoul-related foo in Chicago that I had to delete. There was a vampire attack where the vampire tried to tear out the Blue Beetle's engine and didn't realize it was in the back, not the front.
Just do that in with the chlorophene.
Yeah, but those are the only really large things that I dropped.
Is Carlos still a virgin?
Is Carlos still a virgin? I'm not going to tell you.
Damn it!
Right here, glasses.
Are we ever going to see Sue the T-Rex again?
Are we ever going to see Sue the T-Rex? Are you kidding? I couldn't just let that sit. No. It might be a while, but we're gonna get her out again because that was just too cool to not do it. Right here, sitting down, green shirt. That created the what?
The Hexenwolf belts.
Have we met the people that created the Hexenwolf belts yet? That's another item. I'm not going to tell you a question. I will say kind of. Not really, and yes. But we'll get into more of that during Cold Days as well too. So, yeah.
Are we gonna see any more of the? Are we gonna see the Jade Court?
The Jade Court of Vampires. Are we going to ever see the Jade Court get involved in things? They're really isolationist, which means they just don't care what's happening outside their own sphere of influence, which is largely China. And we're not going to see them. We're not going to see them definitely in any of the case books. They might show up in the big old trilogy I'm going to do at the end.
Woo!
So, yeah, there's going to be, but that's the plan, in case you didn't know. There's going to be about 20-ish of the Dresden Files, depending on whether or not my kid goes to grad school. And then I'm going to write a big old apocalyptic trilogy for the very end.
Nice.
Right here.
One of the storylines I was really excited about that you mentioned was mentioned coming up to Ghost Story was the island and his relationship to it. And last chapter we got a name, but not much else. Are we going to have to wait a while before we get more of that?
Are you going to have to wait a while until you find out what's going on the island?
At least some more.
Yeah, you're going to have to wait until at least next book.
Next book or books after that?
No, yeah, we should actually be able to get some real stuff on Demon Reach next book. And you'll find you'll get an idea of why it's there and why Dresden is probably the worst possible person to be in charge of it.
Isn't that anything?
Yeah, really, Dresden's the worst possible person to be in charge of almost every story. But that's just kind of how he rolls. Right here.
Why did you cut your hair?
Why did I cut my hair? Largely to shock my wife. I walked out of the house with about a 3-month writer beard and long hair down the middle of my back, and got it cut off and walked back in with the crew cut and the beard gone, and waited for her to flip out because my hair's been that long since I was about 20. Waited for her to flip out, and we had one of those conversations where she talks and talks about looking up from what she's doing. You know, I think she was playing solitaire or something, and just carrying on a conversation. And finally, the fun of waiting to jump on it sort of went away, and I just sort of sighed and sat down and started watching TV. And maybe 5-10 minutes after that, she goes, "Oh my God! If we had been having a conversation, I would have shot you right here." Over here, glasses.
Yeah, you were saying about 20 books. When did you decide? Kind of ties in. My question was plotting and how far along you. Did you do an excellent job of pulling stuff from previous stories, bringing them back?
Okay, I've written 20 books. So how much of it did I have plotted?
Right.
And the answer to that was I had 20 books plotted when I started writing them. After my teacher said the first one was going to go, she thought it would sell. I said, well, I've kind of got an idea for the story to take about 20 books. You think that would be okay? And she gives me this very dry look and says, yeah, I think if you can sell a 20-book series, you'll be doing fine. And not realizing at the time how impossible that was going to be to sell a 20-book series to somebody, I went ahead and did it. So, you know, I've been very fortunate in my stupidity, professionally speaking. Yeah.
Okay, I'm aware my question's kind of cheating, but are we going to see more of Nicodemus and or Mavra? I know they're two completely different villains, and hopefully they never team up because that would be awful, but...
Are we going to see more of Nicodemus or Mavra? Nicodemus will show up on schedule.
Yay!
And yeah, Mavra's not done yet either. But she eventually probably will be. And I'll leave that at that. The question was, is Nicodemus, or when are we going to see Nicodemus or Mavra again? I said, if I talk any louder, they're going to start getting feedback, and that hurts my ear. The question was, when are we going to see Nicodemus and Mavra again? The answer was, Nicodemus will show up on schedule, which you can figure out if you stop to look at things, I think. And Mavra will show, and Mavra's story is also not yet done.
Going to the Codex. Why did you end it where you did, knowing that the threat was still viable?
Why did I end the Codex where I did, knowing that the threat was still viable? The threat was viable, but it's not going to show up for a while. They had won the day, and much of the drama that was going to take place afterwards was going to be stuff like, you know, fighting over where the new Fury roads got built, and who got the contracts to do the kind of, you know, the projects that were going to happen in order to rebuild everything. And that struck me as a little bit less quickly paced than I would be good at writing. I need to blow things up, or everybody would be bored stiff with me. That said, if I do go back to the Alera books, which I may well do one day, it'll be a couple of generations in the future, after, you know, they've set up the university, after Tavi's radically altered the way that people use their Furies. It'll be a much steampunkier Alera if we do it like that. But that could still be fun there because there's still going to be some characters who are alive. So let's see, right here. Yeah.
I'd like to know, with 13 books, how do you organize your own lore? So when you're fact-checking yourself, how do you even accomplish that?
Okay, with 13 books, how do I organize my own lore and fact-check myself, considering there's all the stuff there? And the answer is A. The people in the Beta Foo reading group are really good at picking up on that stuff, particularly Priscilla. Yes, she's a machine. She's a terminator of continuity. B. I go look on Wikipedia. No, I'm serious. You guys know this stuff far better than I do, and that's not even a joke because you know, when I write a book, by the time I'm finished with a book, I've seen 7 or 8 slightly different versions of that book. Plus, I have in my head all the versions I could have wrote and decided not to write for whatever reason. So I've got several possible versions to go along with all the slightly different versions, and my facts get muddled quickly. So. Yeah, I go check Wikipedia because you guys are more on top of it than I am. Right here.
What was your motivation behind Curses, and where does it fit in?
What was my motivation behind Curses, and where does it fit into the Dresden universe? I wanted to write a story. I wanted to write a story about the billy goat curse that the Cubs have labored under for more than a century. Just because it was in the news that year, and. Where does it fall in the series? I think it falls right before Deadbeat, I think is where I put it. I'd have to go check my notes to be sure. But that's where it is.
That's not in the side job.
Yeah, that's the story that's not in Side Jobs. It's in the...
Naked City.
Yeah, Naked City anthology. I'm going to put it in the next group of short stories, which I'll probably call, you know, being as original as I am, More Jobs. But there's going to be more short stories there because there were a couple that got missed, and I want to have them all in anthology so that somebody can pick up one paperback, and say, here, I've got them all. At the back, waving the book high in the air. Well, I was impressed with your endurance, that's all. What?
Is Mac ever going to speak more than 10 words?
Is whoever...
Is Mac...
Mac...
Yes!
Gosh, people.
You're welcome.
Ow, thank you for helping.
We helped very much.
Stop helping me! Is Mac ever going to speak more than 10 words? Not for a while. He's not a man of many words, as most truly dangerous people are. Let's see. Right here.
You made mention earlier about you got to name her something, and it's something that always bugs me when I'm doing like role playing. How do you come up with names, and how, is there like a process, or you just go, Susan sounds good, we'll go with that?
Yeah, how do I come up with names? Is there a process, or do I just come up with something? Yeah, first I say, can I name this character with an M? You know, is that even possible? Yes, no? All right, well, it's not. I guess I'll find a different name now. Sometimes I want there to be a meaning behind the name that is going to be significant to the character. Sometimes I don't. But for the most part I just kind of drop them in there. If it's somebody I'm designing way ahead of time, like a major villain or something like that, then I will usually make the name significant to their character. Otherwise, no. I mean, I'll just grab a name. I've occasionally picked up a phone book and went foomp, foomp, like that, and picked 2 different names. That's the character's name. With the iPad in the air. How do I approach creating a new character when I create new characters? Okay, first I will say that is a fine turkey you've drawn there, sir. And second, the first thing you do is to figure out what the character wants and what he's going to be doing in the story. That is the most, as a writer, that's the most critical portion of writing it, is you have to figure out what their motivation is. After that, I'll decide on details of their appearance and personality. I'll decide more or less what their capabilities are, and I'll sketch out kind of a brief. This is why they're doing what they're doing in the story, and then I'll save it on a file, and I'll be able to go back to it next time I see it. Right here.
You said that you plan on things very far in advance. Did you have Maggie, like her name, planned out, or was that kind of thrown in? I mean, how far along?